faith, obviously, and then right now going through chaos in the business. So connect those two for me. Being a man of faith, how do you use your faith to get through the chaos?
I don't do the business for the money. That's the real answer. So what I mean by that is like being a man of faith, the values of what I believe. So I'm a Christian man. So I read the Bible. I believe in it 100%. The principles in it, I believe, are everything that we need in our lives to be happy and successful. I would like to grow the business. I would like to continue to make an impact with our employees and providing employment opportunities, improving our community, everything that this company believes in. But I will refuse to sacrifice any of the time for my faith. That will always come ahead. Family, faith, business comes after. It's a struggle, but I'm always trying to balance the two. The three, really: family, faith, business. And I believe nobody can be perfectly balanced. I think the moment you think you're balanced, you've lost it. Because you can't be perfectly balanced. But that's what I'm enamored with, is how can I do what I love to do, which is grow a business. I love what I do. I love seeing our people thrive. I love the fact that the actual work we do makes a difference in the community, but at the same time prioritize my family and my faith ahead of that. It's hard, but that's what I try to do.
Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder, and today I have an awesome guest for you guys. He's the owner of Laser Pavement Solutions, the host of the Stripe It Like It's Hot podcast. He is a prime definition of what I'm doing with this show. That's why I wanted to have him on, because he represents what a leader is, a visionary is, a builder is, and he's always making an impact as well. Most importantly, he's a father, just like myself. We're going to touch on that a little bit today. We might get into that a little bit. But Cam Roberts, welcome to The Real Build, brother. How you doing?
I am excited to be here, and can I just say, I don't know what it is. You might be the only person who's correctly said the company name and the podcast name. I just, it messes everyone up. Everyone calls it like laser striping, laser pavement striping, stripe it up podcast, but you nailed it. You did your homework, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I actually watched a few of those videos where people messed it up too. So I made sure not to mess that up. And I'm glad to have you on, though, man. This is, like we were talking about before I got this started, you are my first interview back on the relaunch of The Real Build. So I am pumped. What better person to have than yourself? You and I have been talking about doing this together for a little while now. And yeah, man, I'm pumped to get into your life, who you are, what you do, all about Cam Roberts. So let's start there. Let's talk about who is Cam Roberts and go into it. I don't need a 1 minute. This is you. Let's open up the floor. We're not on time limits on this podcast, so I want to hear about Cam.
All right. All right. You're going international for your first guest.
Yeah, I know.
So
Cool.
I wouldn't say my being Canadian, Bill, is my defining quality, but I mean, so I'm a Canadian. Let's get with the important stuff though first. Family, number one. I'm a family dude. Yes, I have 3 daughters. There's a lot of women in my house. Even my dog and my cat are female.
Oh,
I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't see any more kids in the picture, so I'm kind of outnumbered. But they are the reason everything happens. They are like 100%. You get one shot with kids, especially. You get one shot with them. So I'm not determined not to let anything else in my life get in the way of that. So family number one. So the kids are 9, 7, and the baby is now 7 months. 7 months. So ours are awfully close. How old is yours?
7 months, a little over 7 months.
Yeah, our yours was first though by a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So we're almost 8 now.
Yeah. That's so cool. Kids are the best, man.
It's
So
fun.
that's first and foremost. I'm a man of faith as well. That's been a part of my life forever. And that's incredibly important to me. And then after that, I don't know. I used to not be at peace with the fact, Bill, that I didn't have a lot of hobbies. Like I used to, even Robin was like, you need a hobby. You need hobbies. I don't really have a lot of hobbies. My hobby is business. Like I love what I do. And I'm telling you that at a time when there's a lot of chaos in the business at the moment, a lot of things happening behind the scenes. Even in the worst moments, I just love it. I love building something, especially something that just kind of started from nothing. There was no real plan for the business side, but seeing as what it's turned into and what it's becoming fires me up. And I've learned to fall in love with the process of building it. I'm not just saying that because that's what your podcast is called. I genuinely I subscribe to the Gary Vaynerchuk mentality, which is it's not actually about him buying the New York Jets. It's about the process of the New York Jets. It's why he doesn't freak out when the Jets suck every year, because he said, like, I just love the process of what they're doing. I love seeing them suck, because one day they won't suck and the whole process will come full circle. That's kind of how I feel about business too. It's you have to love the process. It's an infinite no end game, so you might as well love it. So I mean, that's the three things in my life that are most important: faith, family, business. I don't know if I have an unusual story as to why I started business. I don't think it's that unusual, but do you know why I started business?
I do, but I'd like you to tell that story.
Yeah, chop my fingers off. A couple of them anyways. That's a great way to start business. So I'm not an entrepreneur by nature. Like when I grew up, my dad was a government worker. He worked in the parks, like provincial parks department where we live on the West Coast. So he's a smart guy. I love him. But yeah, he wasn't a business owner type. He was a government dude. So something along the way, I still don't know why, but something along the way kind of sparked me to go in a slightly different direction. When I was 19, 20, 21, I didn't know nothing. I really didn't know nothing. I took a job in the maintenance department at a shopping mall, which was kind of funny because I didn't know how to maintain anything. So I just learned. I didn't know how buildings worked, didn't know how infrastructure worked, didn't know trades. That was not something I grew up around. I'm actually kind of annoyed at my dad for this. He's actually a sneaky handy guy, Bill. He's crafty. He doesn't say it. And I never saw it growing up, but he knows a thing or two about building a thing or two. So I kind of just learned on the job, so to speak. I had a great opportunity at that place just to learn basic skills. And what I found very quickly as I turned, 21, 22 is like, I kind of like this thing. I like building stuff. I like maintaining stuff. I like seeing, you know, I like the ability of being able to learn something that 6 months prior I had no idea about. And now I can actually like go make a difference on a building and make people's, a tenant of a shopping mall happier. So that kind of led itself to me like just I was literally inventing problems and like finding stuff to fix. And that, kind of led to me inserting myself into some of these tenants at the shopping mall. Um, I would just basically con them into hiring me into doing like goofy stuff like electrical upgrades. You needed a wall built, you need a door hung. I just started doing these little side jobs and I was like, I kind of like this. So um that process of just kind of again, I say inserting myself because I wasn't really that qualified to do a lot of it, but I was determined, like, if I don't know how to do this, I'm going to figure it out. And that's led to me starting a cleaning business. I had a commercial janitorial business for a few years. Wasn't big at all. Like I still kept my day job, but
How
I
old
just
were you?
started.
How old were
I
you?
think it was like 25 maybe when I started the commercial janitorial. Yeah, it was basically anchored with one contract. It wasn't that big of a thing, but I got the taste, man. I got the taste of what working for yourself looks like, and I don't think it ever went away. So, but the real story with the exciting stuff, chopping fingers off on a table saw. So, when I was 28, I was working in a glass shop. So I finished at the mall. They sold the property. I got a cool little severance package. And then I went to one of the companies that we used to hire all the time at the mall, which was the glass company. And they gave me a shot, and I loved it there. And I was going to work there for the rest of the time. I absolutely love those guys. Family company. The brothers were running the show. The parents were still kind of involved. Big company, like 20, 25 people. Big for where I was. I was in small town Canada. So loved what I did there. Um, and then February 5th, 2018, it was the day after, it was the day after the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, which I was really annoyed about. I went to work. was upstairs on the table saw, just cutting some really thin like MDF, which we would use for like templates for glass, like template glass. And I was by myself upstairs, and all of a sudden I heard this whack.
Mm.
So whatever I was cutting, it kind of got stuck under the fence of the table saw just because it's so thin. And I reached over to kind of like pull it out, which you're never supposed to do on a table saw. And I heard the sound, and I legit, Bill, I had no idea what happened. Like I was so loud, it sounded like a lead pipe hit the blade, and it was so fast. I was like, I didn't look behind me, but I thought for sure whatever I was working on just like kicked back and hit the wall. And I looked down, and I saw my two fingies, my index and my middle, were kind of like dangling there, and I could see inside the finger. And I literally out loud said, "Oh boy." Didn't swear. I just, good Christian man. I just said, "Oh boy." So that started a long recovery of like, I was basically off work for 4 or 5 weeks, multiple surgeries, wasn't sure if I was going to keep the fingers. uh Last minute flight down to a Vancouver General Hospital to try and save the things. They did manage to save them. So if anyone wants to see it on video, they did look like fingers now, but I got metal in this index finger. She don't bend like this one, unfortunately. And then this one's got like a fake knuckle in my middle finger to try and get it to bend, but she don't bend. So
As far as they go, right there.
that's it. So, anyways, to wrap up this incredibly long, boring story of why I started, I learned something about myself after that injury. I learned a lot of things about myself, a lot. Some good, some not so good. One thing I learned, I would say, is a good thing. I do not sit around well at all. I cannot sit still. Like physically, I can sit still, but I need to be doing something at all times. Well, I like to see stuff get created. So while I was sitting off work for 5 weeks, itching to go back to work because I was so guilty about what happened, um, I bought a parking lot line striping machine. I figured that was the thing. In my town, there's one guy who was doing it, and he couldn't get to everyone fast enough. I didn't know anything about striping. I found a book on how to do it. I figured, well, maybe I could read the book and figure it out. So, um, crazy enough, like my wife Robin, she's not like an aggressive type personality in the sense of like she doesn't take a lot of risks that way. But she told me, man, in 2018, she's like, I think you should do this. I think you should go spend the $5,000 that we have saved up, literally everything. We had 2 kids, like we had no money in our 20s. She's like, I think you should take it and go buy a striping machine, try it out. So I did. Started striping in 2018, evenings and weekends, basically. So when I started, I had this club on my left hand with this big bandage, but turns out you don't need your left hand to use the striping machine. So I just started dropping business cards off to parking lots, and I don't know, man. I think the rest is history. I had no idea what it was going to become. I had no idea I'd be where I am today, but that's how it started.
It's an amazing story. I mean, why striping though? Why? What was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think the reason why, I know the reason why, but I think the reason why and why I acted on it is actually the same reason why we've grown as a company, and it's actually the same mentality I try to instill in our people here. The reason why I bought a striper was when I was at the shopping mall. I think I was like 21 at that point. I was not the maintenance manager. I was just a dude learning what drywall was and how to install it. I didn't know nothing. I remember they hired that one guy, the one guy in town who had a parking lot striping machine. He'd been doing it there for 20 years. Everyone knew the guy. Well, my boss hired him, and it was not a pleasant experience, to say the least. So I think the work itself, the work that he did was fine. The actual parking lot striping, I don't remember there being any issues. I think the work was good. It was literally everything else with this guy was not good. This is 100% true. This guy, I didn't believe it until I saw it. Uh, it was the next year I was in the office, and my boss had told me every year this guy comes into the office. He doesn't say hello. He doesn't talk. He literally will just say, I want to do your parking lot striping this year. And I saw it happen, man. The next year he came in he was like wearing a wife beater and has like a gold chain on, like, the cigarette had just left his mouth kind of thing. And it doesn't, he swung the office door open. Dude doesn't even say hello. He literally says, Bill, are you guys going to stripe your parking lot this year or what?
Well,
Dude, that was the sales pitch. So I'm looking at this at 22 and I'm like, my boss is like gonna throat punch this guy. Can't stand him. We ended up hiring a company 3 hours away to do our striping just because we didn't want to deal with the guy. And at 22, I remember thinking like I don't know how parking lot striping works. It usually happens at night, so I'm sleeping. I don't actually see the machines. I didn't know anything. But I remember thinking at 22, like, there's no way that this guy can reach everyone in my town of 25,000 people. And even if he could, how many people want to deal with that? Like, he's just like this crusty old dude, right? So that I sat on that idea for about 6 years because I thought to myself, one day that'd be a cool little business. Even if if he can't get to everywhere as fast as it's a short season where we are. It snows 5, 6 months of the year. He can't get everything done in 6, 7 months. So there's got to be room for another guy. So while I was sitting off work in February 2018 with a club on my hand, I'd never really gotten rid of the idea. I was like, man, that striping thing, I bet you I could do it. That's the reason.
I want to unpack a lot of this real quick with you because that your story in general, obviously, and where you started, and I kind of connected two things because I'm writing as you're talking here. Man of faith, obviously, and then right now going through chaos in the business. So connect those two for me. How being a man of faith, and this popped in my head, and I feel like I need you to talk about this. So, being a man of faith, how has obviously as entrepreneurs, there's chaos, there's good, there's bad. We all been through it, but how do you use your faith to get through the chaos?
It's a really good question. And I'm going to give an answer probably you wouldn't expect, but I actually don't link the two. So what I mean by that is the business that I have, and it's grown. There's 16 of us now. We do a lot more than just paint parking lots now. That's why we changed the company name. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy to grow a business to that size. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of you know, a lot of sacrifice. I don't have hobbies. I mean, there's some things I'm sure I would love to do more, but I choose not to because I enjoy the process of building the business. Your question was like about how does the one serve the other essentially? I think the answer I'm going to give you is I don't do the business for the money. That's the real answer. So what I mean by that is like being a man of faith, the values of what I believe. So I'm a Christian man. So I read the Bible. I believe in it 100%. The principles in it, I believe, are everything that we need in our lives to be happy and successful. I don't think making money really fits in to someone's personal happiness. I think there's a lot more important things in this world that will give you fulfillment. In fact, that's what the Bible teaches. Jesus said the happy people would be conscious of their spiritual need much more than making money. So I'm kind of, in a sense, I'm kind of a different dude in the sense that a lot of people in my spiritual circle don't grow businesses, or if they do, they keep it very small. They're self-employed, and I've been enamored with, in the past few years especially, like, I would like to grow the business. I would like to continue to make an impact with our employees and providing employment opportunities, improving our community, everything that this company believes in. But I will refuse to sacrifice any of the time for my faith. That will always come ahead. Family, faith, business comes after. And I'm telling you, Bill, I'm sure you know this. Like, it's not easy. If I wanted to, if I had no other, if I had no other meaning in my life, if there was no family, if I wasn't a man of faith, I would work 18 hours a day,
Mhm.
guaranteed. I love it. I love it. So that it's almost like I I'm in a constant, I wouldn't say struggle, but I'm always trying to balance the two, the three really: family, faith, business. And I believe nobody can be perfectly balanced. I think the moment you think you're balanced, you've lost it, because you can't be perfectly balanced. So it takes a lot of conversation between my wife and I. It takes a lot of her being completely open with me in times where I'm not being balanced, whether it's to family, to faith. Like, I rely on her to help me with that, because I won't always see things clearly. But that's what I'm enamored with, is how can I do what I love to do, which is grow a business. I love what I do. I love seeing our people thrive. I love the fact that the actual work we do makes a difference in the community, but at the same time prioritize my family, my faith ahead of that. It's hard, but that's what I try to do.
So get into it more. How, obviously we all struggle with that, and I personally am the same way. It's and I'm you actually even said you don't like to sit around. I wrote that down because I'm the exact same way. I just took on coaching. I'm volunteering coaching high school football now. That's another thing I added to my plate on top of doing 75 hard, on top of doing running a company, on top of my real estate business, on top, and it's just like, but I don't like to sit around. I'm the same as you. I feel like I gotta, but you have a family, then you have your faith time, and then, you're trying to get the Bible reading in every day. Then you're trying to, um, obviously spend time with your wife, my son, this and that. There is no balance. I 100% agree with that. But what are you doing to try and create something? It doesn't have to be balanced, but what is Cam doing too? Because let's get into this a little more, because it's an interesting topic that a lot of guys, I think, and ladies struggle with, that are in business, that are trying to grow companies, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mm.
But then we seem to take on more other things too to keep ourselves busy, and it just kind of piles up because we're just different. But how do we create somewhat of a balance, I guess is the word I'm trying to think of, but they're not balance. What are you doing with that?
Yeah, like, I, another good question. I totally agree. Like, we should be striving to be balanced people, right? Wife,
Very
kid, high school football coaching. We should try to balance it all. Um, and I don't mean it in a bad way when I say I don't think anyone can be balanced. I just think the moment you think you found it, like, hey, I've got it, you're gonna lose it, because
yeah.
nothing stays static. So what am I doing? I'll tell you what I see happening kind of in my circle, with maybe like with a local subcontractor. Like, I see a lot of business owners who would love to grow their business, would love to, well, do more, make more revenue, hire more people. I see that a lot, especially in my market here. But I also see a lot of business owners who, um, they it'd be way, way too harsh to say they're not willing to put in the work to do something different, but for whatever reason, they are stuck in the same way of doing something. So whether that's, you know, throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I can't find any good people to hire, so I have to do all the work myself. And then I think about the trickle down effect of that. Like, if as a business owner, if I feel that way, if I feel like, man, it's so hard to get good people, and like this process isn't working, and we're trying to do this new endeavor in this company and it's not working, so now I have to do it. So if I do it, that's going to require time. The trickle down effect of that is that time, um, you could easily, this is what I find myself getting trapped with sometimes, and there's a trap I fall into, is I easily could justify, like, I need to do this, I need to spend this extra time working, because if I don't, this will happen. And
Mm.
I feel that what I see happening, and what I'm at risk at sometimes, is you justify it in your mind that you have to do this because it's serving the greater good. Like, my family might not see it this way, but I have to do this because I'm doing this for them. Sometimes that might be true. Sometimes that might be true. However, the position we're in as business owners, I feel really strongly about this, Bill. Wherever we're at in our business right now, if we're in a moment of chaos, if we're in a moment of high stress, if we're in a good moment, like, and things are going really well and things are smooth, no matter where we are as a business owner, you are where you are because of the sum of the decisions you've made to get to that point, and no other reason. It has nothing to do with the market. It has nothing to do with good luck. It has nothing to do with my employees don't get it. Literally, all of those things are the sum of the decisions you've made. So when I'm in those moments, I'm like, how do I, you know, gosh, I had like I Bill, I was up to 1 a.m. last night working. My family's sleeping. I don't mind doing that. But I could do the same thing when I come home at 5 p.m. and just be like, I have to get this done and justify it in my mind thinking this is what I need to do. But the reality is, no, I feel like I need to do that because I've made a series of decisions to this point to put me in that spot. I don't know if that answer made any sense at all. I feel like I feel like I didn't explain it very well, but
No, I mean, that was probably one of the best answers I've asked that question in person to people. I've had conversations with people, and I think that's one of the better answers I've got because I really do think we tend to think ahead, more think of an outcome that's usually not true a lot of the times too of what could happen. So, like you said, we kind of stress the moment of we got to get this certain thing done now. Coming home at 5 p.m. It's time with your wife and your kid, but instead you're like, okay, I got to get this done. I have to because if I don't get this done, this is going to happen. So you're automatically kind of stressing ahead of what could happen when in reality it might happen or probably won't. Most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time things you think are going to happen don't. So I mean that it makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people they struggle pretty heavy with that. I mean, it's like, especially entrepreneurs, when you're growing a business like yourself, like I am, you're always thinking, your mind's constantly running. But what you just said there, too, like you're spending the time, but then you're creating the time later on. Like you're choosing to stay up till 1 a.m. Do you have to? No. But you're choosing to do that because you're getting the things done. Your wife and kids are asleep. And you spent your time with them. So that's kind of your balance. That's your balance you've created yourself. So, I mean, it's a great answer.
yeah, I just feel like it's easy to be lazy sometimes. This is gonna sound contradictory. Like, we're so busy, we're doing so much that you get lazy with the reasoning as to why you're there in the first place. Like, oh, this is just the way it goes. There's a hustle culture. I gotta do it. There's definitely times, right? There's times, especially in business, where, ultimately, if something's going terribly wrong, yes, you probably will have to spend more time than normal to resolve that issue, whatever it is. But ultimately, I don't think the majority of the time you need to work your face off. I don't think you need to put in 70-hour weeks consistently. If you want to, go for it. I can't do that. Like, I cannot work. In fact, I've even said this to my wife a couple of years ago, because I like your podcast, Bill. You asked the real question, so I'm going to give you real stuff here. Um, I like this little orange device thing. Well, mine's orange. This little phone thing has been the bane of my wife's existence for years because it's so easy when you got it in your pocket and especially in our line of work, we have people working in the evenings. So when I was more involved in the operations, like, I'm checking in on people, how are things going, and like they're working overnight, and like the amount of stress, and not even stress, just the amount of times I've made Robin want to bang her head against the wall because she will say something and I'm like zoned out looking at that phone. It's crazy. I've put her through way too much. So, um, I strongly feel that we're just kind of lazy with setting our own boundaries sometimes. I've been guilty of it many times. Like, I can put my phone away for 2 hours and the world will be fine. Like, yes, it's possible something really terrible could happen, but most of the time it's not. And my goal and the way I look at that now is, okay, if something goes really, really bad and I don't have my phone, do I have a system where somebody else can help in that situation? Like, there's so many other things you can do in that situation, where as a business owner you don't have to be like exclusively tied to your phone and your device and checking in on things. um I don't know, maybe there's some spouses out there who are like, yeah, cool, do it, go for it. That's not my spouse, and if I were her, I wouldn't do it either. I would hope that if I my husband came home at 5 p.m., I would like to have a conversation with him that doesn't always involve business, and he's not looking at his phone every 24 seconds. I think that's reasonable.
I agree with you because I think, I mean, I've struggled with that too, where, I mean, I got rid of my Apple Watch just because of that. Because, I mean, I know you can turn off the notifications, but I didn't turn off the notifications. The thing would vibrate. Even when it wasn't vibrating, it was vibrating because you get the little tick in your wrist and you're constantly looking at the thing too. And it was distraction because my wife would be talking. I'd feel the vibration, look down, somebody texting me or an email coming through, I'm looking at my watch instead of being intentional there too, right? And I think a lot of guys in general just struggle with the communication aspect of things too. When it comes to the balance, and I've struggled there too. I'll admit it. We all have, as men and women in business. It's figuring out, how to communicate certain things, how to, explain, okay, yeah, I'm home at this time. I'm going to be working at this time. No different than what you said at the 1 a.m. thing. You probably told your wife, she knew you're not in bed, obviously, that you're going to be working till 1 a.m. So that was communicated. So I think there's a struggle there as well on the communication end with, hey, I'm going to be home an hour later. I'm going to be home because you get absorbed, like you said, you get absorbed in the phone, you get absorbed in the computer, you get absorbed in the email. And if we would just communicate better, I think it goes a lot longer way with a marriage too, because I think that's a lot of people's struggle. You kind of get where I'm going with that.
I totally do. I totally do. um there's some parts of communication I'm really good at, some I'm not. Can I tell you one I'm really not good at?
Absolutely.
And my hope is that somebody listening to that is like, oh dang, that's me too. Okay. um we're recording this on a, what day is it? It's a Thursday. So it would, oh, obviously Sunday night. Sunday night. uh I cried. Not normally a crier, but I cried, and I'll tell you why. Because my oldest daughter, she's 9 years old. She's like an old soul, man. She's super chill. She'll sit in a room all day and just read a book. She's just, she'll drink tea. She's one of those people. But I see so much of me in her. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Um, she said something really funny. I was talking her into bed, say a prayer with her, and literally the moment the prayer's over, so it's like 8:30. She needs to be in bed. She's got school the next day. The moment the prayer's over, she's like, "Oh, I forgot to get my outfit for the talent show tomorrow." So she's been hyped up, man. She's been jazzed up for this talent show. This is her first year in public school. We were homeschooling them before. So she's in grade four. So like talent shows like the coolest thing ever. She's been psyched for this for months. She had this idea that I helped her with. She's going to do this little illusion, make cookies appear in this box or whatever. She's had months to prepare it, months to plan it. And Sunday night comes and she's like, I forgot to get the costume that I wanted. And I like, not, I didn't like freak out, but I made her cry because I said, how long have you been thinking about this costume? Like, why are you waiting until 8:30 the day before to tell me this? And she starts crying, and it turns out that she tells me that she basically tells me something that, uh, again, confirms that her and I are the same. She's hesitant to tell an adult something if she thinks it's going to put them out. So
Mm.
basically, she's like, I knew on Thursday that I needed this costume, and I knew that the talent show was Monday. And she's like, I just didn't say anything. I was like, kiddo, why? Like, think about what we're doing here. It's now Sunday. It's 8:30. I'm not going to spend my next 3 hours getting you a costume. There's no stores open. I'm not going to hand make you one. I'm not going to go into work late so I can go to a store to get you. Like, what were you thinking? And she basically said, like, I knew that I needed it. I just didn't want to like put you guys out. And I discovered, or kind of more confirmed, but like that's me too with my wife. So when a work thing comes up that I know is important, it needs to happen. Whether it's, I don't have to travel very much, but it's happened before. If I do need to travel somewhere, like I will wait, Bill, until the last possible moment I feel like, and then just kind of like spring it on her. Which, when you say it out loud, it's backwards to the goal you're trying to accomplish. Like, but I am like my oldest daughter will wait until the last possible moment just because I'm like, oh, if I ask my wife this, like she's gonna be like, why do you need to do that? And it's gonna be a whole thing. So I'll just sit on it and I procrastinate on it.
Mhm.
And it's not, man, it's not fair to people in your life. So as a husband, I thought about that night. Like I've done this to Robin a lot, where like I know that I need to go on a 2-day work trip. I know that I can't take the kids to school on that day because I have to be in work early. I like, and whatever it is, just, and it basically brought me to tears because I'm like, I am so sorry, Robin, that I've done this to you. Like, I don't know why. Honestly, don't know why I'm so hesitant to tell you, but like, I see it in my daughter, and the fact that I see it in myself means me and her can work on it together.
And that's big that you see it too. I mean, because a lot of people don't see it, and I'm guilty of that too. Waiting. It's kind of what I just said too. Thinking about exactly kind of waiting to say something because you think the outcome is going to be a negative outcome, right? So you kind of wait because you don't want to deal with it. You got a lot of other stuff going on. You're kind of like, oh, I know what she's going to say, this and that. You're kind of stressing what the outcome's going to be. But I think that kind of creates the actual outcome of what you're stressing it's going to be because you wait.
Every time.
Yeah, you wait, and then they're like, okay, you're just now telling me this. Like, what the heck, man? Like, and then it turns into, then you get defensive almost. You're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And this just happened with me actually recently. It's crazy you're talking about this. But, you're making me think about it. I'm just like, all right, I got to go talk to my wife now. But, because it's a similar situation, man, because we stress the outcome, um, and it turns out bad because we delay it, uh, instead of just kind of saying how it is from the very beginning, earlier on, because we already knew what was going to happen, the plans and everything, but we're just like, I don't want to stress that right now because she's going to end up saying this. And that actually makes things worse, right?
Dude, the same thing can happen at work too. I found myself being guilty of that with my employees sometimes too. Like,
Yeah.
you have to have difficult conversations with employees sometimes. And if you haven't developed the skill of having a difficult conversation with your employees, holy crap, are you ever doing them a disfavor? Wow, because yeah, it builds and it festers, and whatever it is, you wait too long until you absolutely have to. And then by then it's usually too late and the situation has gotten worse. And yeah. So it's funny that a lot of the skills at work sometimes work in your family life too. Like, it's okay to have a difficult conversation with somebody. So I'll tell you one other super quick funny thing. My wife was raised with this concept from her parents called nuclear free time. It's the funniest thing. So she was a bad kid. She was an only child. She was bored, always getting into bad trouble in big city. Um, and she knew that, like, oh, her parents ran a pretty tight ship. So she was always, and obviously as a kid you're afraid to speak up if you've done something wrong, right? So that her family had this policy called nuclear free time, where if you needed to go say have a difficult conversation between a child and parent or vice versa, you could say, I need to talk to you, but I need nuclear free time. And that means that you cannot go nuclear with whatever I'm about to tell you, whether it's I killed somebody, or my toe hurts. Doesn't matter. You cannot freak out. Um, we use that in our company. I've taken that. It's on our core value poster under communication. Like, it's on the write up. It says our company utilizes nuclear free time, which allows any employee anytime to go have a difficult conversation with somebody else by saying, I need to have a nuclear free conversation with you. And
Mm.
the idea there is that we trust each other, that if we say that, that signals that, okay, this is not an easy thing to talk about, but for the greater good of the company, we're going to have that conversation. It's the same in your marriage. Like, it's just a struggle, Bill. Like, it's just, I wish it were easy and we just did it automatically. I certainly don't.
Go into that a little bit as far as nuclear, you know, the nuclear free time. Just go into, because you just talked about the difficult conversations, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your employees. How do you do that? You know, how do you, it's just for somebody listening out there, because somebody out there's like, oh, I know I got this difficult conversation I gotta have, but I don't know how to do it. And it's kind of like what we've just been talking about too. The expectation that they have, they're thinking ahead that it's going to go bad. More than most of the time it goes good because you're getting it done, but a lot of people delay it because they expect the worst, right? So let's get into that. Like, how do you do that yourself to have those difficult conversations?
Did you see what I posted on the one team the other day? Because I literally asked that question to everyone else. I just wanted feedback. I'm literally pulling it up on my second monitor here. I don't know why. I feel compelled to. But yeah, I asked the same literally 3 days ago. I asked the same question on the one team network there on the app. Because I was just curious, how do you approach difficult conversations? Because I've thought a lot about it. I've had more difficult conversations in the past like 2 months than I have ever in this company because we have a lot of change happening. Um, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to even answer it, Bill, but I'll just tell you the one thing I think about time and time again, because I truly feel like I need to get better at it.
No, you're qualified. Just whatever you're doing now, you gotta let me know and
Whatever.
just
Well,
let
I'll
it
tell
out.
you,
Because you might even answer your own question here, Cam.
that
You
would be amazing.
yeah.
That's happened before.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'll talk to myself and
whatever's on Cam's mind, I want to hear it. How do
all
you
right.
and this is for you. Obviously, this is I mean, and it probably is going to help somebody that listens to this podcast. It's definitely 100% going to help them because everybody's different in the aspect. I think of that too,
Yeah.
because I'm sure you got different answers from everybody from on the One Team app too. So it's like kind of hard to. You're going to shape your own way. Let's put it that way. So how would Cam go about it?
Yeah, that's a good point, Bill. I agree with that. You will shape your own way, absolutely. So even though I feel like I'm not the most qualified, I'll tell you the one thing that I do. So the day that I posted that on the one team was the day I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with one of our employees. I began the conversation by saying, I need to have a difficult conversation with you. And don't be freaked out. I'm confident we're going to have a good resolution or good outcome from this conversation, but it's a difficult conversation. The only thing I'm going to say here about that, yeah, in it, I guess two things. Number one, I like leading with that. It's pretty disarming. It's telling the person right away, hey, this is a serious thing, and that's okay. In our company, we were promoting that. Um, I love the idea that you can speak freely, respectfully, but speak freely, even if it's uncomfortable. So that'd be my first thing. I have no problem just saying it right off the hop. I'm going to have an uncomfortable conversation. The second thing is I don't feel like Bill. I'm that touchy feely of a guy, but I get touchy feely in those kind of conversations because right off the hop, I'd say I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I have feelings about this. I have a feeling that after we talk about this, that you're going to react negatively because, well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that conversation, but based on what we're going to talk about, like here's what I feel might happen, but I'm going to assure you that that's not the outcome I'm trying to achieve. Here's the outcome I'm trying to achieve, and here's the situation. And then I proceeded with the difficult conversation. I kind of feel I might be wrong here, but I kind of feel like whether it could be a spouse for sure, or an employee at work, or whatever that wherever you're leading that difficult conversation. I kind of personally believe that if you lead with that sort of opening, and that is if that's the real introduction, like this is going to be uncomfortable, but I know we need to have this for the betterment of the company, for our marriage, whatever the situation, no one should react negatively to that. And if they did, I don't think you have a reasonable person, in which case there's no point in having the conversation at that point because it's not a reasonable person, right? Um, so far, I've had good success with it just by saying, look, it's not going to be the funnest conversation, but we're going to have it because I want you to get better. I want the company to get better. I want my relationship with you as my marriage mate to get better, whatever the situation is. That's it. That's my only 2 cents. I really don't feel I'm that super qualified to talk about it, but that's what I'm trying to do right now.
I think you're more than qualified to talk about it because that's a heck of an answer. I mean, because you're going into the conversation open-minded. You're not just closed-minded that you're the right one and they're not. So that makes a huge difference right there. So touche to you on that one because I mean it's important with that. Like whether it's with your spouse or it's important to hear perspective. It's important to hear their side too. And I think that's why a lot of the world struggles today in today's age because everybody's like this. Nobody has common ground anymore. They're all just, I'm right, you're wrong, you know? And coming into it with perspective like you do and saying, hey, here's what I'm going to talk to you about. Basically, I'm having a difficult conversation, but the end result is going to make this whole thing better. You know, just that kind of if I was sitting at the other side of you, I'd be like, okay. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna yell at me now, you know, this is, this might go good for me, you know, but it's kinda leaving that openness for me to be able to kinda speak my mind too, you to hear me out, and then the conversation goes back and forth like it should, so, great answer. I mean, that's the thing, 100% a great answer. I think you're more than qualified to answer that question because you just did. So
The only other thing I would say about that, I've been thinking this has been on my mind a lot in the past 2 months is I kind of feel that the only way I'm going to get better at having difficult conversations is by doing them. I
yeah,
don't think you can read a book and figure it out.
no, no.
If it were that easy, we'd all just watch the YouTube video on how to have a difficult conversation and be like, got it. No, I think you just got to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes with marriage too, and it's like I think a lot of people shut down. You got to drop your stubbornness, and you got to just resolve it, you know, and have the conversation. Okay, let me hear you out. Okay, here's my perspective on it. Okay, let's kiss and make up. We're good. You know, it's instead of just the stubbornness and shutting down and saying I'm right, you're wrong, that type of thing. You know, I think a lot of people struggle with that too, is they just see one-sided and they're not willing to drop the stubbornness and move on from the situation, or resentment continues because they do move on, but the other person wasn't heard, you know, and that goes in business. It's crazy, like you said, because they both go hand in hand, in a way, you know. And just the result and how you speak and everything like that too. But it's definitely um interesting, you know, and I think you gave a great answer there, by the way, too. I mean, having difficult conversations for everybody, no matter what, whether it's with a client too. Um, I've struggled with that. You know, you fear the worst. You fear the worst case scenario, especially with a client that you think is upset with something. But most of the time, and I have to tell my employees this too, because they're the same way. If they see me do it, they're going to do it, especially. But if a client emails you a certain way, emails usually come off kind of pretty much in a dick manner. I'm sorry, but they do, you know, in a lot of ways. There's not really a way to make a happy email if you're a client asking about something. I have quite a few, but I'll call them and they're a whole different personality after reading this email that I think I'm getting cussed out. And, you know, you call them, they're like, hey, how are you? How's the baby? How's everything going? This and that. I'm like, what about the email? You know, like, and then you talk to them and you have the conversation. Yeah, this is, and you kind of go through their email and answer their questions and stuff like that, which kind of brings me into, which just popped in my mind, having more, like you just said, one-on-one conversations in person. It goes a long way. Uh, People can see your facial expressions, your personality, how you truly feel too, because you know your gestures, everything go a long way rather than just shooting it through a text message or an email. So
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'm I see a lot of struggle in business owners, especially smaller ones. We're just starting to really hire people, like just struggle to have accountability, and it's okay to go have that difficult conversation. Like it's if you are hyper focused on the greater good of the company. Our company recently started implementing EOS, and I love EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, because it's entirely predicated on a system that is designed to improve the greater good of the company. Now, when it comes to communication, that's one of the foundations of EOS, and I feel like any good company should have this foundation. Have those open, honest conversations. Yeah, it's work in progress, man. Work in progress.
Let's go. Last thing to wrap this up, because this kind of draws into that, and I want to go into your leadership. Obviously, having all these conversations, or these topics, these things we just went over too. I think it all reflects and kind of kicks back to Cam's leadership. You as a leader, you as the captain of the ship, growing this company. Um, Talk about how you've improved in that aspect, what you're doing, maybe some suggestions for business owners out there. Because leadership is such a key thing. I didn't really focus on it too much until, I mean, 4 years ago. I didn't really even, because I'm in a family business, and it's like, I had my dad. My dad was retired now, and my dad was kind of always that guy, but then he went out of it, and then it was just kind of like, there's my brother and I. Well, we need an established leader. We kind of figured that out, and it doesn't mean anybody's less than anybody else. It just means there's got to be somebody that makes sure the boat doesn't sink, you know, and takes all the punches and everything. And I turned out to be that guy. Um, and it's been fun, taking all the hits and everything. But somebody's got to do it. So talk about your journey with that, with your company, and how you've grown as a leader.
Mm. I mean, I would talk about culture and leadership all day. It's kind of a thing. I'm going to try and boil it down. Um, I've been very grateful and thankful because a lot of a lot of the ideas or the principles that I use in my company I've absorbed from my mentors. Um, being involved in an organization like Top Contractor School is so helpful for that because yes, there's a leadership team at Top Contractor School, and Keith and Brian and those individuals. If anyone's listening who doesn't know what that is, I go check out Top Contractor School. But it's not just that; it's the people in the organization as well, the members, the co-members in that. And I've been in a couple organizations that have been so helpful for that because I've gained some perspective from other people who are in similar situations, having similar struggles. And I I I guess to put it directly, like I love people, clients, employees. I love it all. I'm a people driven person. But I can say that at the same time acknowledge that in a business, people will be the biggest struggle, the biggest downfall, and can cause you the most problems. I'm okay with that. I view that as an opportunity. So for myself, leading this company, I'm simply trying to build more leaders. That's it. Like I don't feel like I'm in charge. I feel like I'm responsible for the people who are in my charge. And part of that process, and what I'm thinking a lot about these days is how do I get that responsibility of leadership to other people? Can I get leaders to create new leaders in the company? And thankfully, one of our key hires in the last 6 months is our operations manager. Him and I are very aligned on that. Like, how do we create new leaders? What I don't want in this company, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job, but it's going to become more important as we grow. And I think this is a major struggle in certainly companies in my industry in pavement, but probably in others too. I see a hierarchy problem in organizations. This is what I perceive, anyways. I perceive there to be a hierarchy problem. Like I there's one of our biggest competitors here, and I hate the word competitor, but the similar company that does work similar to us. We get along just fine with them. But I do see that in talking with some of the people who have worked there, is that there's a hierarchy where information is essentially gathered at the field level, or for lack of a better term, at the bottom of the hierarchy, and that information flows up to the top so that whoever's sitting on top of the organization can then make decisions. I think that's incredibly stupid. I just think that's a terrible system. And I think it's an insidious thing that could happen in a company where that's the expectation. Like, bring information up to the guy at the top so he can make the decisions. I think it's horrible. I think it's inefficient, ineffective. And what I'm trying to do is, like, I feel like that approach completely strips people of their a measure of control and responsibility and agency. Like, especially in my generation, built like, holy cow, the next generation, people rag on them as like the next generation of workers. I don't see that as a problem at all. I see a group of young people, men in particular, who want to feel connected to a bigger purpose. So my job as a leader is, let's get the authority that does exist at the top of our organization. Let's push it down. Like, let's get the authority down, empower people at levels so that rather than simply reporting information to the top, the authority gets pushed down so that those people can make effective decisions and maintain and have that measure of agency and control. It's hard because, um, uh, you know, I don't think I'm out of line in saying this. A lot of the people that we hire and that are currently working here, and I'm at my office today, which you could probably hear equipment in the background. Like, a lot of those people did not come here to be employed as leaders. That's not what they signed up for. But the people who have maintained their employment here and who want to be a part of what we're doing understand that. They understand that, hey, if I'm a senior technician, my job is not just to work around and do stuff and stripe parking lots or push snow in the winter. My job is to actually train the technicians, to lead them. It's brutally hard, because something my ops manager says all the time is the hardest thing for a leader to do is to not do.
Mm.
So I'm trying, Billy. I'm trying to not do. My inclination is to like jump and protect sometimes. Like, I'll do it. I know how to do that. I've done that job before. You can't do that. You got to push that authority down, and it's okay to watch somebody trip and fall. It's okay to see them, help them back up, help them try again. But it's okay if they trip and fall. It's okay if you could do it better. Push the authority down.
It creates bigger vision too for them. It gives them purpose. It gives them something to, strive for too. Because I think, like you said, I think you were talking about your competition, and everything kind of funnels up to the top and has to go through. And it's an old school approach where more micromanage kind of, every the guy at the top has to approve everything and see everything and do everything. And I don't think, like you just said, I don't think that works anymore. I think, and I have younger employees, the next generation after on my staff, and they're awesome. They're hungry. They want, to level up. And they're constantly trying to figure out how. And they bring it up too. They're hungrier than the people that I have that's our generation, And they because they want to be a part of it. They see the overall vision that I cast out, and I do the same thing. I say, you can be a leader too as a project manager, or even up higher than that as this thing grows. If we're taking over the state of Florida as a luxury home builder, I'm going to need you in this place, this place, this place, because I can't be everywhere. And it's putting that trust in people, and over time, you get to know them. You really get to see who they are, and that's like what you said earlier too about having the right employees that give you the time. Let's go back to the balance per se. Having those right leaders in place can give you a little bit more balance so you can spend more time with your family. And this whole thing, it's crazy how it all circled around today, like what we just talked about too. But anybody listening to this, I mean, it's take notes. I hope you were taking notes because we just went full circle right there. That's crazy.
Something. Okay, one. Can I say one other thing?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Just popped in my brain, and I can't remember where. I remember the second part. I think it was maybe Simon Sinek I was listening to, but um, I something you just said just caught my ear, and I gotta explore it. So you said um, this company is going to take over the state of Florida. That's what I say. This company, not Florida, but I say, hey, we're going to take over this area. Like I say the same thing. And I don't. I think we've done okay with this, but one thing that I'm concerned about is as deliver that message, exactly the same message that you're giving to your people, like, hey, we're going to need more people. We're going to need more people with authority. That excites people.
Mhm.
That excites people. Like, yeah, I want to be part of. I want to be part of a growing company. Literally, Bill. Everyone here knows that this company's innovating all the time. We're changing. Like, we're trying to improve. They know that. They're on board with it. What I'm worried about or cautious about, what I'm cautious about is why are my people wanting to be involved in that? Because if the answer is just money, if the answer is just money, I don't think that's a good enough reason. Like everyone would like to make more money. Employees would love to make more money, but it's got to be connected to something more sustainable, more impactful. So I actually just was it was Simon Sinek. So this was I just shared this on one of the top contractor school calls because it made such an impact on me. It was about CVS pharmacies. So we actually don't have them here in Canada, but I've been in CVS pharmacies. I think they're great. Um, they have a passion statement on their website, and it's something like I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like we care about people's health. That's the passion of CVS pharmacies, people's health. So when they really started pushing that passion statement, company is still growing, obviously in the 2000s. When they started really developing and pushing that statement on their website and their marketing, one of the places they started delivering that message to was they were senior management at CVS was having more involved meetings and interactions with medical professionals. They're trying to position themselves as a company like we do care about people's health. Let's involve people in the medical community. And as the story was going, for at least how Simon Sinek says it, he says the message that they were getting consistently back from the medical professionals was, that's a great initiative. Love that you're doing that. Why do you sell cigarettes at your store? And CVS was forced to kind of analyze, okay, on one hand, we say that we care about people's health, but from a product standpoint, cigarettes offer no health benefits. We know the stats, it's killing people. So they had to kind of decide what to do with that. Like, can we really say that we care about people's health if we're selling cigarettes? Now they get quite literally over the course of the company's history have made billions of dollars in revenue. That's not an exaggeration. Cigarettes are high revenue. Great business model because it's addictive, right? So they knew that they were going to not just lose immediate millions of dollars in revenue, but they were going to funnel that revenue to their competitors. At the beginning of 2014, they announced we're going to stop selling cigarettes later this year. And Wall Street freaked out, Bill. Like stock went down, like terrible. It didn't take long and they officially stopped selling them. I think it was September of 2014. They stopped selling all the CVS, pulled all the cigarettes. And one of the most amazing things happened. Well, a number of amazing things happened. Number one, the stock price shot up shortly after. The dip was not sustainable. The dip went down after Wall Street had their freak out. Second interesting thing in the immediate communities where they had larger CVS centers, the actual smoking rate went down in those cities because CVS was such a major player in that, right? People started smoking less. The average, I don't know what they call it in retail, like the ticket value or how much a customer would spend per transaction went up at CVS. And then the other really interesting thing is their employee retention and morale shot up after that because now people at the lower level, so to speak, saw this happening. Like, hey, we don't sell cigarettes anymore. What's that all about? And they were explained why that increased morale and retention. So that's my long story. The point of that and why I'm so enamored with that story, and I'm going to tell that story at our team meeting here next week, is because if you simply want to get promoted at Laser Pavement Solutions to make more money, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be good enough for you. Don't worry about me. You will not be happy if you're just chasing the money, because what we're doing and the mission of what we're trying to accomplish, the passion of this company, is about improving communities. That's what drives. That's why I do what I do. We're trying to improve communities and we're trying to give the maximum potential growth to people who work here. If we simply dish out responsibility and authority to people because they're like, yeah, that'd be great, I'd love a promotion, they're going to lose that connection to the improving the communities. They're going to miss out on their potential because it's not going to be tied to it's going to be tied to their paycheck and not the difficult decisions that the company is going to make in order to accomplish the mission. So in the past, I've been a ruthless promoter of people, like ruthlessly promote people. And when you do that, I think it's good, but you do get to a point where people kind of hit their ceiling at their current skill set. And what I'm finding is that, like, if you just ruthlessly promote somebody and start giving them more money, more responsibility, more authority, of course they're going to accept it. That's great. But if it's not tied to the greater, more important mission, it's going to be a struggle. So, like, from a safety standpoint alone in this company, we do asphalt work. It's very high risk. You're working around cars. We stripe highways. I don't want one of my employees to not go home to their family that day because we didn't follow a safety protocol, because we were so enamored with getting and growing and doing more responsibility and authority that we didn't take the time to ensure people were safe along the way. We can't improve the community, or we can't help people achieve their personal growth if they're getting injured or dying here. So let's focus on that. So I just feel like I went on a TED talk for you, but that's something I think a lot about.
That was so, yeah, that was so good right there. I mean, that I highly agree, man, because it's like you got to have a purpose. You got to have the vision, and your employees have to have that same thing. It can't just be about money, because it's like you said, they're going to get capped out and then they're going to go somewhere else. There's no loyalty. And I mean, you and I can go on a whole nother hour onto that whole topic as far, but heck of a way to end it right there too. And we're definitely going to have part two of this, uh, for sure. Cause, I mean, this was great, man. Like, I had notes I didn't even read off of them at all. This is what we went off of here, right here. So it was, I was just going with you and the flow with you and everything. And like I said, everything went full circle. So this was awesome, man. I appreciate you doing this today.
It,
Heck of a kickoff to getting this thing back going here.
let's go. The reboot is back. No, pleasure's all mine, man. Thank you so much for having me, and we'll run it back anytime.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Cam?
The
Before
internet. I'm I'm kind of all over. I like it when, especially if people are in pavement. I love when people in pavement reach out. Yeah, the podcast is kind of where a lot of the communication happens. So if you want to see what the company's doing, Laser Pavement Solutions, we're all over the socials. But the podcast, I'm having a lot of fun with. It's grown a lot, and I'm not really sure where it's going. But Stripe It Like It's Hot podcast. Yeah, you can find Instagram is where you find a lot of us on there. So.
love it, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate the time today. This was awesome. A lot of great information. So I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this show. And with that being said, guys, thank you all for listening. And I will see you guys on the next episode.
The Real Build is about building better culture, leaders, visionaries, community to better serve the client. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder, and I'm here to showcase real business owners building companies with integrity, trust, and a commitment to making a positive impact. Join us as we explore their stories, insights, and strategies for success. With that being said, welcome to The Real Build.
You leave this world behind, so live a